Yo, what is up boys? My name is Fragger Mike, and in this full guide I will help you make 2026 a year of unbelievable improvements. Bro, I put so much time and effort into this video. Like, this is not gonna be just another top 10 tips video that gives you the most basic advice. Like, I've put together my best advice from years of experience, both in coaching and competing myself. And I know this video is super long and I don't expect everyone to watch this, but if your goal is to go pro in this game and actually make it big, then this is the best video you will ever watch. And I put some timestamps in the description so you can skip around this video if you want. But I highly suggest you just watch the whole thing. So when you are ready, let's begin. Lesson number 1. Self-image and identity. Your goal is to go pro in Fortnite Competitive, and I made this guide to help you achieve this goal. But first we have to make sure that your brain doesn't work against you. This is called self-sabotage. And to understand why this happens, we need to talk about your self-image. This is basically the collection of beliefs you have about yourself. You might see yourself as a hardworking, disciplined and competitive person. Or you could see yourself as just a little kid playing video games for fun. And what's interesting is that human beings, we tend to act out our beliefs. Kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you see yourself as the best player in the world, then your brain will try to make that happen. And if you see yourself as the worst player in the world, then once again your brain will try to make it happen. Your brain is a very powerful tool, and you cannot underestimate it. Because after all, your brain is in control of all your actions. And if you don't take the right actions because your brain doesn't allow it, then you're not gonna get the results that you want. And so it all comes down to your beliefs. Peterbot believes he is the best player in the world, and that's why it's true. And sure, we can go down the argument of what came first, the chicken or the egg. But the best answer to that dilemma is simply they both developed at the same time. So an animal that looked like a chicken produced an egg, this egg turned into something that looks even more like a chicken, and that animal produced another egg, until we eventually end up with an actual chicken. And the same goes for Peterbot's belief that he is the best player in the game. He first thought he was pretty good at the game, so he kept grinding and he kept getting better, and now he believes he is insane at the game, and so he starts winning even more. And now he believes he's the best player of all time, and I would agree. This is what I call the reality spiral, where your beliefs end up determining your reality. If you believe that you are a serious competitor and that you're going pro one day, then you're gonna do things that most players won't. Like listening to a 2-hour guide on how to go pro in this game, because that's what a serious competitor would do. And because you're listening to this guide, you will see yourself as a more serious competitor, and this cycle repeats itself. And this spiral can go in 2 directions. It can go up or down. You could believe you are the worst player in the game, and so your brain will try to make this happen. Maybe it will make you nervous in fights, or maybe it will prevent you from grinding. Either way, it will accomplish a reality where you are bad at the game. Now, if you're an Academy member, you probably remember the exercises we did when I made a whole video about beliefs. That's where I explained how to break these negative spirals and how to enter positive ones. And so the link to that resource will be in the description. Lesson number 2. The chances of going pro. Next up, we need to talk about your chances of going pro. Because, as you know, only a handful of people make consistent earnings. This game is extremely difficult because there are millions of other players around the world that are trying to compete for the same thing. They're trying to outcompete you. This is just the reality of the situation. So yeah, technically only like 0.1% of players end up being a pro in Fortnite. So this has to be taken into account when you're deciding whether you want to go pro in the first place. Because this is going to take a lot of your time, your effort and sacrifice for a reward that is not even guaranteed. And that makes the journey even more difficult. I get it. I'm not going to sell you some bullshit and say that this is gonna be easy. This is objectively one of the harder career paths. My job is not to convince you to become a pro. Becoming a pro is not the only way to be successful in life. There are many other goals that are just as fun and maybe even more fulfilling. But if I were you, I would not focus too much on the statistical likeliness of becoming a pro. Because in a way, those stats are irrelevant. If you are the type of player that expects results without working for it, then your chances of going pro are 0%. They're not 0.1%, no, they are simply 0%. If you don't have patience, then your chances of going pro are 0%. The point I'm trying to make is that circumstances dictate your chances. If you don't do the right things, then you don't stand a chance. If you are hardworking, smart, you learn from your mistakes, you get along with your teammates, you never quit, and you watch videos just like this, then your chances are a lot better than someone who doesn't tick all of those boxes. And sure, natural talent is a thing, like genetics, but that's only one small part that is out of your control. There are 100 other factors that are just as important. You could have just as much natural talent as Peterbot, but if you play on controller and 70 ping, then you are not gonna play like Peterbot. Your job is to turn the odds in your favor by changing your circumstances. If you play on controller, then you have to switch to keyboard and mouse. If you are lazy and inconsistent, then you have to start building systems so that you're a lot more consistent. If you are bad at fighting, you need to change that and you need to become good at fighting. But once again, if deep down you believe in yourself and you believe in your potential, then it is possible. If you believe you were simply not born with the right genetics and you won't make it in this game, then that's gonna be your reality. There's this crazy example of people not believing you could do a 100-meter sprint in 10 seconds. People thought it was humanly impossible. Until one guy somehow broke this record. He ran 100 meters in under 10 seconds. And then the following year there were like 10 other people that did the same thing. Even though that record hadn't been broken for years by anyone trying. It's because a part of their brain believed it was impossible. You can only really achieve what your mind believes. If you don't believe it's gonna happen for you because, there's such a small chance, then, that's gonna be your reality, your future. Lesson number 3. Motivation. I will always keep quoting the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius when he said, "Nothing should be done without a purpose." If you cannot articulate a reason why you are doing something, then you might want to reconsider it. A simple example is when you randomly find yourself scrolling on social media. If you stopped and asked yourself, "Why am I doing this?" then you probably wouldn't have a good answer. Maybe you started scrolling on TikTok because you saw one notification, you clicked on it, and then one thing led to another, and there you were. Is that really how you want to live your life? You take action because a notification pops up or something random happens? I hope you are a little bit more deliberate than that, and you actually think before you act. So take a small moment to think about why you are grinding Fortnite Competitive. What are the benefits? Why are you doing this? What do you like about the game? What are your ambitions and your desires? If you don't have a good reason to play this game, then maybe you should stop. Some reasons for playing this game could be, I like competing, I like the challenge of going pro, or I like making progress. I think those are some pretty valid reasons to play this game. When motivation is low, this can really be your source of strength. Simply remember the reason why you started grinding in the first place. What motivated you? Was it the idea of making progress? Then maybe you feel demotivated because you haven't been making as much progress lately. Maybe you should analyze what is holding you back and, do something differently. This past year, I did not feel motivated to grind this game, even though I made some decent progress. And so I asked myself this very question. Why am I grinding this game? And I just couldn't come up with a good answer. I realized I no longer aspire to be a pro. That is not my dream. It's an old dream. So I was grinding without a purpose, without a reason. And it felt horrible. But now that I shifted my focus to coaching and making these incredible videos, I can just feel this is what I'm supposed to do. And so I feel naturally motivated to grind 12 hours per day. And I know I had the same feeling once about Fortnite Competitive. Motivation is a very useful thing. Because sure, it's important to be disciplined, and sometimes you need to force yourself to do things that you don't really want to do, like playing Kovaaks. But if you feel motivated to grind and you feel motivated to play Kovaaks, then everything becomes so much easier. It doesn't feel like an obligation. It just feels like you get to do what you want to do. You watching this right now, you probably want to make 2026 the best year possible. That's why you're watching this video. The motivation is there, even if you don't fully realize it yet. Because not everyone is gonna sit through an hour-long video about going pro in this game. That is pretty rare. And by the way, if you know someone else that might watch this entire video, then you could send it to them, because they will probably appreciate it, and so will I. Lesson number 4. Goal setting. Now at this point I want you to set one clear goal for 2026. Maybe you want to qualify for Division 1, and that would be a huge accomplishment. Or maybe you want to make your first earnings, or just making your first 1000 PR. This will become your North Star for 2026. However, I don't really like the idea of setting goals. because then it sounds like something you could achieve or fail to achieve. I like framing things as commitments, because this implies that you actually have to get the job done. You don't choose a goal, you choose a commitment. Everyone loves saying, yeah, I want to be rich, or I want to become a pro, or I want to be fit and strong. But actions speak louder than words. Setting a goal is easy, but doing the work that is required, that is the real challenge. I have set so many goals in my life and I've achieved a lot of them. I wanted to reach 10k subscribers on YouTube and I did that. I wanted to make my first earnings and I did that. I wanted to do a handstand push-up and now I'm able to do that. But I think one of the best things you can do when setting a goal is basically committing to the goal and saying to yourself, I'm not going to stop until this goal has been accomplished. I also think it's important to set smaller goals than your ultimate goal. So sure, you want to be a pro player one day. Like what would be one milestone on this path? Like getting your first earnings or 1000 PR? What is the next milestone? Because this makes the ultimate goal a lot more manageable. It's no longer this big and scary thing. If you set a goal that is too big, it's easy for your brain to become demotivated, because it feels so far out of reach. That's why all video games have level up systems. You don't defeat Bowser on level 1. Mario has to defeat the Goombas and the Koopa Troopas, and that's how you learn the game, until you slowly level up. So when you eventually face the level 100 boss, he doesn't feel that scary anymore. And you have the right skill set to defeat him. So right now I want you to pick one clear goal for 2026. So that if you achieve this goal, then 2026 can be considered a successful year. And then you can't forget what I said about commitments. If you choose this goal, you better make sure that you follow through and take the right actions. Every day should be used to make progress towards this goal. And if at any point you forget about this goal or you stop chasing this goal completely, then you are doing something wrong. Because then you just chose the wrong commitment. The people in life that achieve their goals, they hold themselves accountable to that goal. They don't just say, yeah, I want to get earnings, and then not try at all. When you choose your commitment, I expect that you stay committed. Lesson number 5. Never quitting. In an ideal world, you set a goal and you don't stop until the goal has been accomplished. Some people are very dedicated and this is easy for them, and for others this is more challenging. There are a million reasons why someone would start chasing a goal and then quit halfway through. Maybe they get stuck, or it becomes too difficult, or maybe they simply lose interest. But in a way, this is a very big waste of time. Imagine setting a goal and then quitting before you reach it. Setting a new goal and then repeating the same process. What you are left with is a series of unfinished tasks and no real accomplishments. Then it's better to take more time in the decision-making phase, to really make sure that you want to achieve this goal. Only if you're absolutely sure you want to do this, then start working for it. Because you only have one life, and you don't have an unlimited amount of time and energy. If you decide to make your first earnings in 2026, and you spend the first 9 months working your ass off every day, then you don't want to quit at September 1st. Back in 2022, that's when I first quit the game. And it was because of school. I used the COVID lockdowns to grind Fortnite Competitive 24/7, and that's why I made so much progress. But then when school started again the next year, I just couldn't keep up. I had to quit for a while or I would probably have failed that year. And then after high school I came back to the game for 1 month and I didn't see enough progress, so I quit again. This time probably because I just felt stuck, or I was just not patient enough. And then I decided to completely forget about Fortnite. I was like, yeah, I tried this, it didn't work out, and now I'm trying to be successful in something else. And I did that for 2 years. Until I started this YouTube channel and began coaching. This made me come back to the game for attempt number 3. And right now, I don't really see a possibility of quitting. I'll still compete in tournaments, even if I might not grind as much. And you might have seen that I made some more earnings in the Unreal Cup last week. As someone that has a lot of experience with chasing an extremely difficult goal and quitting somewhere down the line, I want to tell you that quitting Fortnite Competitive is one of the worst things you could do for your progress. If you quit for 1 month or even a year, it's so hard to catch up. The average player just keeps getting better. I used to be considered an insane fighter, And now I'm probably pretty average for a competitive player. If I could go back in time, I would tell myself to never get behind on schoolwork, so you never even have to take 1 week off grinding, let alone an entire year. If you want to be a pro and you believe you could do it, then some people, they will judge you and they'll think, you're just a little kid playing video games until you're successful. But in the beginning, you won't make a steady income. You might not make any income. You might not make any earnings. That's part of the struggle. And if you're not ready for that, then, you might have to quit now before you invest all of your time and energy into this goal without seeing anything back for it. And lastly, I would tell myself to grind in a way that is more sustainable. Because if you burn yourself out too much by grinding 12 hours in a day, it's gonna lead to forced rest days. Instead of grinding 12 hours, it's much better to just grind for a solid 8 hours, so you can be more consistent and you never have to quit, even if it's just for a little bit. Making the grind sustainable is also another lesson in this guide. Lesson number 6. Patience and persistence. It is super important to have patience. Going pro in this game will take a long time. If you wanted to go pro in the World Cup days, then you might have been able to do it in under a year. But nowadays, the top 1k players on your region, they are so incredibly good. A top 1k player right now is probably better than Booga when he won the World Cup. Like the level of aim, mechanics, fighting skill and game sense, it has skyrocketed. So if you're somewhat of a beginner right now, it will take a lot of practice to reach that level of mastery. Depending on where you are right now, it could take up to 3 years before you become a pro player. And your brain might reject this information because it cannot comprehend this time frame. But you need to create a situation for yourself where you have at least 3 years to really log in and grind. And if you say your goal is to go pro in this game, then you are expecting to be a pro player for a while, right? You want to reach the top, but you also want to stay at the top. But it could take you like 1, 2 or 3 years before you actually make consistent earnings. And of course, you can speed up your progress by doing the right things or by grinding harder. But I guarantee that you underestimate how long it will take. And if you expect to be a pro player within a year and then it doesn't happen, then you might be more disappointed. Even though you might be making great progress. You need to wait years for your hard work to compound. If you train your aim for a week, you're not gonna notice, maybe a little bit. But in 1 year, your aim could be 10 times better than before. If you chose another competition like football or basketball, it would take you so much longer. Sometimes for these athletes, it takes them decades to reach the top of their sport. Compared to other careers, you can go pro in Fortnite very quickly. Like you can make money by playing a video game that you love. And if that is your dream, then you need to have some patience. That is the price you need to pay for the success that you want. So if you ever feel like quitting, then you need to remind yourself to keep going. Remind yourself of why you're doing this in the first place. And remember that you might go through a difficult period right now, but you have to find a way to keep going and overcome whatever obstacle is in front of you right now. Quitters never win and winners never quit. And although there are some nuances, for the most part, this is true. Yes, it will take time. A long time. It will be difficult. With my help, hopefully it can take a lot less time and it can be a lot less difficult. But either way, you're gonna struggle at one point. And that is the moment where you are truly tested. And you can either pass the test or you can fail. Whatever you do, just keep grinding. Lesson number 7. Discipline. Discipline is the skill of doing hard things. Forcing yourself to take the cold shower, or to exercise, or to sleep on time, or to play Kovaaks or scrims. Most people, however, they confuse discipline with consistency. Those are two very different things. Discipline is only used when you feel resistance towards doing something. If you hate a specific Kovaaks scenario, then discipline will tell you to do it anyways. If you don't feel like doing schoolwork, like your homework for school, then discipline will tell you to do it anyways. If you have high levels of discipline, then you will be a lot more successful in life. You'll be healthier, more accomplished, have a better social life, be better at Fortnite. Everything is better if you have more discipline. That's why it's so sad that most people don't really have much discipline. They pretty much do whatever they feel like. And when it comes to going to their job or going to school, that is not discipline. That is consistency. Discipline can be trained exactly like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And just like a muscle, discipline also gets tired. If you overuse it, then you need to let it recover. I specifically train my discipline when taking cold showers. which means at this point it is more of a consistency thing. It's a habit, but we'll talk more about that later. I wanted to talk about this cold shower thing. There are many reasons why you would take a cold shower, but the most compelling argument is to train your discipline. Like right now it's winter and the weather is super cold, so my brain would feel resistance to turn on the shower and expose myself to the freezing cold water. And so it's a very simple daily exercise to take cold showers. I don't want to do it, but I force myself to do it anyways. Some people don't have this capability. If they don't feel like doing something, then they just don't do it. But that's a problem, because sometimes you won't feel like playing Kovaaks. You won't feel like playing scrims. You won't feel like VOD reviewing. But the more disciplined version of yourself, he will push past that resistance. And he will do it anyways. And that version of you, he exists. And he's outplacing you in tournaments, because he's doing all of the right things. Whenever you don't feel like playing Kovaaks, you just don't do it. But someone else, he might not feel like it and he does it anyways. So his aim is gonna improve more than yours. If you guys would ever 50-50, he's gonna out-aim you and you're gonna die, he's gonna live. He's gonna win, you're gonna lose. If you can never ignore the voice inside your brain that says, I don't feel like it, then you will always lose to the guy that can. Discipline is especially important to build habits. Discipline is especially important to build habits, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if you had discipline or not. It matters if you took the right action. If you consistently play Kovaaks because it is a strong habit, then your aim is gonna get better. Discipline can help you form the habit, so if you never played Kovaaks a day in your life, then you might not feel that motivated. It doesn't matter if you were disciplined or if it was just a habit. Discipline can definitely help you form the habit. So if you never played Kovaaks a day in your life, then you might feel motivated one day, but the next day you will feel resistance to doing it. But if you use your discipline for just 2 weeks, 14 days, then this will turn into a habit. And our brain loves habits. Habits are safe. Discipline helps you do the things outside of your comfort zone. But if you do something consistently, then this will become your new comfort zone. And before you know it, it will feel weird not to take a cold shower. I cannot take a warm shower anymore. I tried it. Right now it feels so weird, I just changed it back to cold. You can do the same thing for grinding and practicing. You can get used to playing scrims for 3 hours a day. And whenever you don't play scrims, it feels like you're doing something wrong, it feels off. Playing scrims can become your new comfort zone. On the flip side, it could also be your comfort zone to not play scrims, and playing scrims would be outside of your comfort zone. I will leave another resource below this video to a habit tracker so you can build this consistency. And I'll also leave a link to the video I made about consistency and building habits. By the way, I recommend you start with the things that are good for your health. Lesson 8. Energy. Most players, they have the wrong priorities. They will consistently train their aim in Kovaaks before they consistently go to the gym to train their body. Like if you are going to build some habits, then please start with your health. I don't know why I need to say this to you, but your health should be your #1 priority. Because without your health, you have nothing. Literally. You can't play Fortnite when you're dead. But just being alive is not good enough. There are plenty of people that are unhealthy and still alive. And that's not the life I wish for you. The most important thing about maintaining healthy habits is your energy levels. If you sleep on time, if you eat healthy foods, if you exercise, if you drink enough water, then you will have more energy. And energy is basically your life force. Whatever you want to achieve in life, it will cost energy. If you want to go pro in Fortnite, you need to spend your energy training Kovaaks and training scrims and practicing tokens. It costs a lot of energy to grind. And if you have no energy, you can also have no discipline. If you have no energy, you cannot grind properly. So before you fix all of your in-game mistakes, like making a wrong rotate, it is much better to fix your real-life problems first. So start by fixing up your messed up sleep schedule, for example. Stop drinking bullshit sodas and eating junk food like pizza or bags of chips. Invest in a good water bottle so you can keep it right next to you at all times. And you can drink plenty of water. And you have to train your body every single day, with a couple of rest days in between. If you focus on these things first, this will not only benefit you in Fortnite Competitive, but also in life. Like although I focus a lot on Fortnite on this channel, my goal for you is to live a healthy, happy and successful life. So please, don't spend 10 hours grinding without spending a single hour exercising. Exercise is super important, and the same goes for all of the other healthy habits I mentioned earlier. I made a whole course about exercise inside Fortnite Academy, and people are saying it's really good, so I will leave a link to the exercise course below this video. But if I could go back in time, I would slap myself in the face and explain that life is a whole lot better when you are extremely healthy and fit. It's probably better to sleep than to stay up grinding. Like, did you know that learning happens in your sleep? You probably did. And that doesn't only apply to learning stuff in school. All the muscle memory from your mechanics is created in your sleep. So why would you mess that up? What about your reaction timing? You understand that sleep is good for that too, right? Sleep is important for so many things you need to function as a human being. And if you are a serious competitor and not just a little kid playing video games, you need to treat the rest of your life just as seriously as you do Fortnite Competitive. Like, you have to be disciplined and consistent with playing Kovaaks and grinding scrims or tokens, but also be disciplined with the habits that keep you alive and energized, that keep you healthy. Now that we talked about energy, I have to talk about focus. Because focus is the practice of using your energy and putting it into one thing. So if you care about going pro in Fortnite, then you want to put as much energy as possible into this goal. Most people do the opposite. They divide their energy and they waste it. If you want to live an average life, that is totally fine. But if you want to be exceptional at something, then you need to make some sacrifices. And you decide how far you go with this. Because some people, they actually quit school to focus on Fortnite. And you get to decide how far you go with this. Because the less energy you spend on other things, the more energy you have left for Fortnite, and the more you will improve. Some people literally drop out of school to focus on Fortnite, although that would not be my recommendation, especially if you don't have any earnings. And I already talked about how to manage school in lesson 8 of the Distractions Guide, which is also inside Fortnite Academy, so I suggest you check that out. I will once again leave a link below. But quitting social media, for example, could be a really smart idea. Instead of wasting your time and your energy scrolling on TikTok, you save that energy and you can use it for your goal of Fortnite Competitive, and you invest it into your goal. Focusing is a process of elimination. You need to eliminate as many distractions as possible. That is why I made the distractions course. Distractions are basically the enemy of focus, and it covers all forms of distractions and how to get rid of them. I really suggest you check that out because it's one of the most important things. Because once again, if you want to go pro, you need energy, and if you waste your energy on bullshit, then you're not gonna have as much energy to grind Fortnite. Sometimes you get distracted by other goals, or hobbies, or technology and social media, and sometimes you get distracted by friends and family. If you want to make it as a pro, Fortnite has to become your whole life, basically. And you will be misunderstood. People will think it's weird. You might spend less time with your friends at school. Because whenever you have time, you are on the grind. You will spend more time with your teammate than with any other person. Like, you must be obsessed to become one of the best. The more obsessed and focused you are with this one thing, the more progress you will make. Does this mean that other areas of your life might suffer a little bit? Yes, that's the truth. When my family went on holidays to Greece, I stayed home to grind scrims. And if I could go back in time, would I change this? I don't think so. Because I was giving it my 100%. And that is honestly the best feeling in the world. Being locked in, grinding, chasing your dream, and making great progress because you're doing all of the right things. I also think God has a funny way of seeing when you're committed and when you're making sacrifices, and then just giving you more progress and more results. But that is of course not a proven phenomenon, so I'm not going to focus on it right now. But it's such an amazing feeling to give a goal your 100%. And there are definitely times when I become a little too obsessed, where I start sacrificing too many things, like my health. You have probably been in the same situation where you stayed up till 3 AM because you're playing a solo cash cup in NAC, so on another region. Or maybe you were playing 4v4 zone wars against some really good fighters and you didn't want to miss out on that practice. And so you're sacrificing your sleep for this goal. And the next day you grind another 12 hours and you sleep a little less again. And again you grind another 12 hours and another 12 hours. Until you eventually collapse from exhaustion. I know what my true limit is. I know how hard I can grind. And it feels basically inhuman. It's like I'm a working machine, and I'm very proud of how far I can push myself. But sometimes you need to let that ego aside. If you ever worked so hard till the point of total burnout, then you have seen what your true limit is. And it's best not to go back there. Because if you burn yourself out on a regular basis, it will lead to inconsistent grinding. Like you grind 12 hours a day for 7 days straight, but then you have to take some time off to recover. Like I always say in my videos that you need to grind as hard as possible. But I think I changed my view on this. I now think you should grind hard, but slightly below your limit. So let's say you're capable of grinding 12 hours a day. Then maybe just grind for 8 hours, 9 hours or 10 hours. Because this way you'll never burn yourself out completely and you can stay a lot more consistent. I remember seeing this in Aimer7's guide for Kovaaks, which is also such a useful resource, and I'll leave a link below. But I wanted to read a small part out loud. He said, "To begin, the total number of hours is not a good measure of mechanics training. The latter will saturate due to exhaustion after a certain number of hours during the same day. As an example, it might be useful to train 2 or 3 hours a day. But adding hours to the scheme wouldn't be very productive, if not counterproductive. You might burn out over long time skills or get injured, especially if you play another real game in parallel. As a result, being consistent and playing every day of the week is more rewarding than playing 10 hours today and then none for the next 3. That is, the number of consecutive days is a better measure of training than the number of hours. Improvement happens on a daily basis and during sleep. It is therefore very important, especially for aiming skills, that rely on your reaction timing and awareness to sleep well. If you are a tryhard, you should split your mechanics training. Play 1 hour now and play 1 hour later in a day. If you're even more of a tryhard, you can take naps between training sessions if you feel the need to. The point of this passage is that it's better to stay consistent than to grind really hard and then burn yourself out and then be inconsistent. So in this past year, I grinded harder than ever before. Because I was like, yeah, I'm the top grinder. I need to prove to these players that I am actually, one of the biggest grinders in the world. But every single month, I would just be completely burnt out. And that is not the right way to do it. Of course, you still need to grind. The more you practice, the better you become. But you really don't have to be so extreme. Like, remember what I said about being obsessed? That doesn't mean you have to grind every single second that you're alive. Taking breaks and sleeping and recovering and rest, that is part of the grind. Like, you are still a human being. You're not an actual machine. So in order to win in life and in this game, you have to take that into account. Because you might not use your body physically like in a sport like basketball, but you can definitely get tired after a long day of grinding. Lesson number 10. Enjoying the process. I recently did an interview with Retro, the NA West Pro. I don't know if you guys remember, but he said something very interesting. My question was, if you could go back 5 years, what would you tell your younger self? And he said to have more fun grinding. Instead of taking this game too seriously, give yourself some slack. Like, at the end of the day, you are going to spend a long time grinding this game. And if you burn yourself out completely, or grinding feels more like a chore, then you're gonna hate the game you once loved. Grinding should be fun. It shouldn't be forced all of the time. Like, sure, sometimes you don't feel like playing Kovaaks and then you force yourself to do it. But for the majority of the time, you should enjoy grinding. This past year, I really forced myself to grind. I forced myself to play scrims, and my teammates sometimes forced me to play scrims. But eventually there came a time where I just didn't have any fun grinding. Sure, I was improving, but you could also improve while having more fun. So I think this was some very good advice. It's better to grind 6 hours and enjoy those 6 hours, than to grind for 12 hours while hating every second of it. So although I always say like you need to grind and you need to work hard for your goal, I'm starting to realize that doesn't mean you have to grind like 16 hours a day. You can just grind for 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, because this way you will still maintain love for the game and you can grind for longer periods. Lesson number 11, the improvement process. This is actually one of the most important lessons. I want to explain the core principle behind improving in Fortnite Competitive. So even if you never heard of Fortnite before, this small lesson will tell you exactly what to do to become one of the best players in this game. The first thing you need to do is understand your goal. If you say you want to go pro in Fortnite, You mean you want to be so good at the game that you consistently make a living from tournaments. So you need to be good at playing tournaments, so you can make earnings. You don't need to be good at ranked, you don't need to be good at scrims, you don't need to be good in creative, but tournaments. That is the first thing. Too many people spend too much time in creative because they don't understand how to go pro. If your goal is to be a creative warrior, then sure, spend all of your time in creative. But you're not going to end up being a pro, because there are more things that come to that. Now, to quickly understand how a tournament works, all you need to do is play one. You have probably played a bunch of tournaments before, so you already know how it works. But then you will quickly notice a skill deficiency. You don't get enough points to get the placement you want, because you die too much and you win too few games. And so you realize that you have to improve. And you improve your skills by practicing them, training them, with the ultimate goal of being better at tournaments, so you get more points and make more earnings. But how do you figure out what skills are lacking? Well, you go in replays. You look back at your tournament games and you figure out all of your mistakes and your weaknesses. I've done so many VOD reviews on this channel and you might have seen a couple of them. Sometimes your mistakes are obvious, like when you die to an awareness check, and other times it's less obvious, like when you die to Surge. Like, did you die to Surge because you were slow early on in the game, or because your mid-game positioning was bad, or because your rotates in the endgame were scuffed and you got tagged a bunch of times, or simply because you missed all of your Surge tags? Like, what is the reason you died to Surge? It is maybe a mix of problems. It might be a combination of problems that got you killed. And when you're first starting out in Fortnite Competitive, you will pretty much die to anything. Like, you'll die in fights, you'll die to fall, you'll die to Surge, you'll die to an awareness check, you will die to a 50-50, you'll die to a pre-edit, you'll die to a bad rotate, you get lobby focused, whatever. That's why, for beginners, I often recommend to have a very broad training routine that isn't that specific. But let's say you notice yourself dying in fights a lot, more than anything else. Then you could consider making this a priority and focus on it. Spend more time training your fighting skills. Now, each skill can be trained in a number of different ways. You can train your aim in Kovaaks, or in aim duels, or in a headshot only map. You can train your fighting in 1v1s, 4v4s, tokens, ranked, scrims, or even in tournaments. And there's never one clear answer of what you need to do. Like, sometimes players enjoy playing aim duels, and that helps them improve their aim a lot. And other players, they enjoy playing Kovaaks. And both of them are correct, like, they're not wrong. They're both good options. Like, all you need to do is find an efficient form of practice for the skill you're trying to train. And then you need to practice consistently. And then you need to practice this consistently. Every time you play Kovaaks, your aim gets a little bit better. And over time, you will fix your problem of missing shots. And now you'll get more kills and get better tournament results. If you ask me, this all sounds pretty simple. The difficulty is in the consistency. Because 80% of players, they will quit Kovaaks after 1 month. They just don't have the discipline, or they couldn't establish this as a habit. And so their aim will remain trash, and so will their placements. Like, your challenge in this game is not to learn any super secret pro strategy. Like, sure, pro players can give some tips, but that's not how you become a pro player. The real secret is building a routine that allows you to practice consistently the things that you are bad at. Like, you don't even have to VOD review. Don't get me wrong, VOD reviewing is amazing. But if you do a bunch of fighting practice and you play a bunch of scrims, then you probably cover 80% of the skills you need to learn. By the way, I will talk in more detail about the specific forms of practice and training routines later in this guide. Lesson number 12. Long-term improvement. Now, it is very important that you focus on long-term improvement instead of just focusing on short-term placements only. If you VOD review a tournament, you will notice certain mistakes. Maybe the top 3 mistakes that you're making are positioning, surge, and awareness. But this should not dictate how you spend the entire next week. You shouldn't focus on only these 3 things to get a better placement the tournament after. Like, you should always be training in a way that is optimized for your improvement over years. For example, you have to train your aim every single day. And you will probably not notice any real improvement when doing it, unless you do it for many months and maybe years, because then your aim is gonna get insane. But you cannot just skip aim training for 1 week because it wasn't on the top of your priority list. Like sure, you die to surge and positioning and awareness in most of your games, and it's fine to spend more time focusing on that to get a better placement next week, as long as you don't sacrifice anything that will help you in the long term. A better example is being able to W key in tournaments. If you are not the greatest fighter and you need to improve your skill of W keying in tournaments, because once again, you don't want to be good at W keying in ranked, you want to be good at W keying in tournaments. They have to accept the fact that you are going to get some bad tournament placements, because you have to practice W keying in tournaments. And that might mean you're gonna die a lot in the beginning, but that's how you improve. I did this for quite some time. Like back in the day, I was crazy in creative, but not so great at fighting in tournaments. So I kind of used so many solo cash cups as fighting practice until I gained more confidence and started placing better and actually being able to W key and fight in tournament games. Like one tournament result does not matter at all. Like that's also the mindset you need to have when playing tournaments. If you mess up your tournaments for the next 3 months or 6 months, it does not matter, because at this stage all you're trying to do is get better. You want improvement, that's all you need to focus on. Forget about the placements for now, that will come later. And sure, you have to play for the best placement possible. I'm not saying you should intentionally mess up your tournaments. But if you do get a bad placement, you just go back to the drawing board. Go back and replace and figure out all of your mistakes. Like every loss, every failure is a learning opportunity. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you get a top 500 placement in a solo cash cup or a top 10,000 placement. What really matters is that you're training in a way where you could eventually place in the top 10, so you actually make some earnings. Lesson number 13, the progress spiral. In the last 2 lessons, we talked about how to make progress and how improvement really works. And when you use this guide and do exactly what I say, you will make a lot more progress, I guarantee it. But then something interesting will start to happen. All of a sudden, you get addicted. Not in a way of being a little kid playing video games, but you'll get addicted to grinding and working hard and making progress. Like making progress in a goal that you care about is one of the best feelings known to man. Like if you ever made a lot of progress, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like every day you do exactly what you're supposed to do. And every day you see how much progress you're making. And this becomes your biggest source of motivation. Remember what I said earlier about you needing a purpose or a reason to do something. The reason that you grind is that you make progress. And that just feels amazing. It makes you happy. And that's a very powerful reason. And this is what I call the progress spiral. It starts with you doing all of the right things. And this will inevitably lead to more progress and better results. And this then feels rewarding. This feels amazing. And now you are even more motivated to do the right things. And the cycle or the spiral repeats itself. Most people would just call this momentum. And ideally, you stay in this momentum for as long as possible, right? Well, that's why I figured out the exact reason why most people break their momentum and go back into a rut. A rut is basically the opposite of momentum. It's a period of very slow growth and a lack of motivation or energy. So the rut looks like this. You don't do the right things, you do the wrong things, you barely make any progress, you don't get good results, and so you feel extremely demotivated. Maybe even asking yourself, why am I even doing this? But when you're having so much momentum, why would you just stop doing the right things? Like there's something very evil at work. It's like a poison in your brain. And it's called complacency. You might get to a point where everything is going your way. And instead of staying alert to keep this momentum going, you slowly feel like you have done enough. Like you already played 45 minutes of Kovaaks today, and yesterday you spent 1 hour playing Kovaaks. So you don't really need to complete the whole routine. You don't need to complete like the whole hour. Or maybe you went to the gym yesterday and you're like, I'll skip today. I already did a workout yesterday, and you just take an unplanned rest day. Slowly, because you feel like you've done enough, you stop doing the things that gave you momentum in the first place. Like you will slowly break all of the good habits and develop bad habits. You stop VOD reviewing because you feel like you're too smart now. You already understand this game, you don't need to VOD review anymore. Or you skip your mechanics training because your mechanics are already good enough. Like my mechanics are insane, like they're good enough to go pro. So why would I still train them? But that is the wrong thought process. Like the reason you have good mechanics is because you trained them so consistently. Stopping that would be a big mistake and cause you to lose that momentum. That's exactly how 1 week you could be on top of the world and then the next you are in a massive rut. Lesson number 14. The energy spiral. I explained how the progress spiral works and how you can break out of it. But there's one spiral that is so tightly linked to it, and that's the energy spiral. Because energy is the thing you use when you're doing the right things. Like if you have no energy, then you cannot grind, you cannot VOD review, you can't do anything without energy. So you can only enter a positive progress spiral when you have enough energy for it. A rut, as I said earlier, is a period of slow growth. But a rut is also a period of low energy levels. So if you mess up your sleep schedule because you're grinding too hard, or you stop exercising because you're grinding too hard and you're skipping the gym because you want to play Kovaaks instead, or you don't drink enough water because you're locked in grinding and you forgot to keep a bottle right next to you, or you eat unhealthy food because you don't spend the time, eating healthy food, you just order in some junk food, then this could cause you to enter a negative energy spiral and lose the momentum you built up. That's why I talked about the importance of building habits that support your health and your energy. And the reason why I call them spirals is because they work in a cycle that becomes increasingly powerful. Exactly like a tornado, like the rings at the bottom are very small, but they'll become bigger and bigger as you go to the top. So here's an example of a very small cycle. You have a little bit better sleep, so you have a little bit more energy. This makes your next workout a little bit better. And this once again gives you a little bit more energy, and then your sleep is gonna be a little bit better. That little cycle might not seem significant, but it's actually a very big deal. Because it's not a cycle, but a spiral. It can spiral into a situation where you have amazing sleep every night, which means you are rested properly every single day, and you have enough energy to do consistent workouts, which helps you improve your sleep. You might not realize it, but you are always either in an upward or a downward spiral. A very negative energy spiral is when you haven't been in the gym for the last 10 years. You eat Cheetos on your couch every single day. And now because you are so fat, it's nearly impossible to go to the gym. I know I went a little bit off topic when talking about these spirals, but it is such an important thing for you to consider. What type of spiral you're in right now? Like, are you in a positive energy spiral? And are you in a positive progress spiral? Then great. But if you're not, then you have to make some changes before you spiral all the way into hell. But if not, then you have to make some changes before you spiral all the way into hell. Lesson number 15. Visible versus invisible improvements. Now, in an earlier lesson I talked about the progress spiral and how you can get a lot of motivation from seeing your improvements. But what if your improvement is not so obvious? What if you are doing all of the right things, but you're just not seeing any results? That can be pretty difficult. Like imagine a situation where you're first starting out playing scrims. First game you die off spawn. The next game you die to a griefer. The next game you get lobby focus. The game after that you die to surge. Like you keep losing and losing and losing, like you're never winning any games. And you're dying to the same mistakes over and over again. And for some people that can be pretty demotivating. Because you want to see some improvement, but all you see now is that you're just trash at the game. That's because you don't really notice what's happening inside your brain. Like you are slowly learning how to play this game. You're learning what works and what doesn't work. You realize what rotates get you killed, or in which situation you are more likely to get lobby focused. Even if you don't consciously think about all of those lessons, your brain is processing that information and storing it at the back of your mind. And then you might still die to the same mistake multiple times. And it would be incredible if you could just instantly fix all of your mistakes. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. Like you need to repeat the same actions over and over again. You keep playing scrims, you keep grinding, and you keep making the same mistakes. And then slowly you'll develop a better understanding and intuition for the game. The same applies to training in Kovaaks. Like if you play for 7 days, you might not see a crazy difference. Your aim will still be inconsistent or inaccurate. But that doesn't mean that you are doing the wrong thing. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Like, just because you don't see any progress over a short time period, that doesn't mean you should change your actions. You should not stop playing scrims if you don't see your placements going up. You should not stop playing ranked if you don't see your fighting skills going up. And you should not stop playing Kovaaks if you don't see your aim improving. Because once again, improvement takes time. You have to be patient. But if you can make your progress visible, that would be really good. For example, in Kovaaks, there's a built-in feature where you can see a graph that displays your previous scores. So you can literally see your scores going up. If you play Raider's Impossible Edit course, there's a timer, and you can try to beat your previous high score and track how well you're doing. And even with playing scrims, you could track your average placement. Like if you play a scrim session of 3 games, then what was your average placement? Just calculate it real quick, and I'm sure you know how to do basic math. And if you do that for the next session as well, then you can see if your average placement is going up or down. If you see your scores going down, by the way, that will just be a reminder to lock in. You might panic a little bit, but that should only make you want to try even harder in your next session. Like, seeing your progress is much more powerful than simply feeling it. Like, you are probably a pretty smart guy, and you can't easily trick your brain. So if you show your brain how much progress you're making, then your brain will look at the evidence and see this as the truth. But if you don't have any concrete evidence that you're making progress, then your brain might not be so convinced. And then you're not gonna get the benefits of feeling so much more motivation in the progress spiral. I hope that makes sense. In short, just remember to make progress visible if possible, and if you can't do that, then don't be easily discouraged when you don't see much progress. Because sometimes progress is simply invisible, especially on a shorter time frame. Once again, you should not give up. Don't give up on training your mechanics when you don't see your mechanics going up. You just keep practicing, and then over time they will get better, I promise you that. Lesson number 16. Making no progress at all. Sometimes you don't see any progress simply because you are not making any progress. You are kind of stuck on the same level, and this could be for a week or even a couple of months. And this is what we call a plateau. It's like an invisible skill ceiling, and no matter what you do or how hard you try, you never seem to break past the level where you are at right now. This is a lot more likely to happen when you are a little bit further in your Fortnite competitive career. It is probably at a moment where you are pretty good at the game, but you are not insanely good at the game. It could also happen when you're still a beginner. But going from level 0 to level 80 is very different than going from level 80 to 100. Like, if you are anything less than 1k PR, and I mean EU because on other regions that's a lot easier. But if you're below 1k PR, I still consider you to be at the beginning stages of your Fortnite competitive career. And if you don't see any progress in the beginning stages, then you are probably just grinding too little. Or you're having too little patience. That is always my safest bet. Like, if I could go in your replay files and see how many scrims you have played in the last 30 days, it would be shockingly low. And you don't have to lie to me or lie to yourself. Like, you need to face the reality that you are not grinding hard enough. Like, you are not doing the right things, because if you were, then you would be making good progress. For so many years, you've been following YouTubers like It's Jarian and Destiny Jesus. And they never really made it clear to you that you have to put in the time, that you have to grind, and that you have to grind scrims in particular. Like, they have never been on the grind. Quick side note about Destiny Jesus. Like, despite having so much access to all of these pro players, right? He still cannot even place in the top 10k. Like, there's a very big difference between theory and practicality. Like, in theory, Destiny Jesus was supposed to be super good at Fortnite Competitive. Like, he has access to all of the master classes and all of the pro players that gave their secrets away, right? But if you actually play Fortnite Competitive, then you will know that most of what he says is not how this game works. He might understand this game in theory, but not in practicality. But going back to the plateaus, if you're below 1k PR, I promise you, you are not grinding hard enough. And you might disagree with me right now and say like, nah, I'm grinding hard enough, I'm grinding as hard as I can. But I think later on you're gonna realize what grinding actually looks like. And what you are doing right now, that is not considered grinding. And if you are actually grinding, it is pretty much impossible to hit a plateau until you get to my level. As you guys know, I am not the best player in this game. I'm also not the worst player in the game. I'm a top 1% player, which means I am better than 99% of players. And if you are close to my skill level, then you are probably pretty good at the game. You are pretty good at fighting, at rotating, at positioning, at playing endgames, everything. You might get between top 100 and top 2k in most of your tournaments. But you're not really at the point where you consistently get in the top 100. And if that is your situation right now, then listen carefully. Grinding is not your solution. Grinding might have gotten you to this point, but it is not what gets you to the next level. I'm not saying you should stop grinding, because it's still good to work hard and practice. But from now on, you have to work smarter, not only harder. What you need to do is you need to build in-game habits by focusing on them. Like one small habit can be the difference between placing in the top 2k and the top 1.8k, which might not sound like a crazy difference, but there's like 100 small habits you can build. An example of such a habit is placing a cone in your box. Like maybe you haven't built this habit yet, and in one of your tournaments you die because of it. Like someone cones you from beneath, or maybe someone jumps in your box and he places a cone in your box, and then you just die. Grinding 10 hours of scrims is not going to help unless you change this behavior. Like you have to do something different. You have to build a different habit. Maybe by learning a new habit or by destroying an old habit. A much bigger habit is starting to play for height. That is a habit. So let's say you're in endgame and you're in the first or second moving zone. You can make it a habit to scout for height. And if you see a good opportunity to take it, then go for it. This is a pretty important habit because it will help you win more games. I'm not sure if pro players always consciously think about this, but they have dozens of these small habits locked in. If you have a big HP advantage, then face in the box and just take the 50-50. If you get a refresh, drop mats to the IGL. If someone pre-edits on you, then instantly leave that box and get out. If zone pools max distance, then prioritize the rotate and try to get ahead early. And if you get below 500 mats, then be more aggressive for a refresh. Right now I'm not gonna go in further detail about all of these habits and analyze whether they're good or bad. But you get the point. Like your problem right now is not that you're grinding too little and so you're bad at the game or something. No, the problem is that you are super inconsistent. One game you randomly look for height and you just take it and you win the game. But the next 10 games you forget about it. In one zone you box up in brick and then the next game in the exact same zone you box up in metal. Why? Like really think about the things you're doing. Why are you doing it? Like the most basic piece of advice is to land at the same drop spot every game. Why? Because it allows you to be more consistent. Consistency is what you need now. Like what you need to do is be intentional with your actions. If you mindlessly play scrims for the next 10 hours, that is not gonna do anything. That will help you develop a base level skill when you are in the beginning stages. But at this stage, it will barely help you. It will only benefit the guy that hasn't played that much scrims. But for you, it will keep you stuck at the same level. Without using your brain, you can only get so far. So it is time to think. Because one small decision of like, oh, maybe we should start playing for height more. That can be the difference between making earnings or failing to do so. And I'm not even saying you should play for height. Like maybe you're more comfortable playing for low ground or mid ground. The point is that if you continue grinding without learning specific skills and building specific habits, then you will feel like you hit a plateau and you don't improve. Because you might not improve as much. And you should be pretty happy about the fact that you got to this point, because you no longer need to grind as hard. Like extra grinding is not gonna help you. Extra awareness, that's what you need. Lesson number 17. Building a game plan. Having a written game plan is a big part of this awareness. If I say to you, go play this scrim and win, then you have a pretty decent chance at doing so. But if I gave you step-by-step instructions about what to do in every situation, then this would be a huge help. A game plan at first principles is a plan about how you will play the game. The problem is that every game is different. So how can you ever be consistent if the environment keeps changing? Well, that's when you start looking for overlapping similarities. In every single game, the weapons deal the same amount of damage. In every game, there are more players at the congested side than at dead side. And every game in 6 zone, the zone is partially covered by storm. That's the half-half zone. And so you can first of all make a general game plan that is based on the things that are consistent. So if you want to get more surge tags, then you could write down in your game plan to stay a bit more towards the congested side. And in one game that might be south, and another game that might be east, or north or west. But you could follow a rule that says if you're at that side, then maybe you should go more towards center so you get more tags. This can be planned regardless of the situation. For these types of plans, it's irrelevant what situation you're in. And this should be the foundation of your game plan. But because every game is different, a lot of things are situational. So if you get contested by one team at your drop spot, what do you do? If you get contested by 3 teams, what do you do then? And what if you have a better drop than them? What if you have a worse drop? Or if you have the same drop? Do you swerve and go to a backup spot? Do you even have a backup spot in your game plan? These are the types of questions that can be answered before you play a tournament. But only in real games can you test out what works and what doesn't work. Because all of these things are situational, so you have to put yourself in those situations. And that's where playing scrims comes into play. You have to play scrims so you get feedback on your game plan. So let's say you box stop center zone, expecting to get a lot of surge tags. But then you noticed, oh shit, everyone is boxed up and nobody is moving. Then you have to adjust your game plan based on that feedback. And this is exactly the reason why you shouldn't listen to Destiny Jesus. And I know I shit talk him a lot, but that's just part of the Fragger Mike experience. If I say something, it's because I have the experience of playing hundreds of scrims. And I have the evidence to back this up. I remember when Destiny Jesus posted a game plan for the Unreal Cup. I could show it on the screen right now, but I was like, what the hell is this? That might be the worst game plan in history. And everyone kept saying, oh, this is so good, bro. I don't understand how people can be a fan of Destiny Jesus. But not only is this the worst game plan, it's not practical. That's the thing. It's so theoretical. You cannot just say be further in than sitting on edge. Because it's situational. Sometimes you have to sit on edge and it would be dumb to rotate further. Because then you'll just get tagged for no reason. So a game plan should have general guidelines to follow. Like try to loot up quickly when you're uncontested. But when you start getting into the territory of building a specific looting path, then it becomes situational. Because what if a team lands in the middle of your looting path? What do you do then? If you are a real tryhard, and I hope you are, then you could try to anticipate a bunch of different scenarios and make a plan that is adaptive or dynamic. So let's say you are uncontested, then you will do this. Unless zone pulls far, then we do this. And if there's one team contesting us, then we do this. Unless they have a terrible drop, and then we do this. Because once again, your game plan is not supposed to be theoretical. It has to be practical, otherwise it's useless. Like you have to be able to execute it and do it. And the last thing I want to say about game plans is that you should definitely write them down. So write them out. But if you practice your game plan in scrims, then over time you will get used to them. And then you don't need to look at every step and read, oh, now I have to rotate, or now I have to look for a refresh. It eventually becomes automatic. You basically become one with your game plan, so to speak. It's kind of hard to describe, but imagine you're so locked in while playing a scrim or a tournament game. And afterwards you can just look back at that game and think, wow, I just followed my exact game plan. That is what I'm talking about. Like your game plan becomes so intuitive, like you are so used to it, that it almost becomes another habit. And once again, that's you building these habits so you become more consistent. And that's ultimately what a game plan is for. So you don't have to improvise in every single game. No, you just do the exact same thing. So you are consistent. And of course you try to do the things that keep you alive and don't get you killed. Because otherwise it's a pretty bad habit. So sometimes you have to stop doing those bad habits. And other times you need to build a better habit. And to really hit this point home, if you make a game plan and you practice it consistently, then it will become a habit and you will do the exact same thing in your tournament games. And that is how you build a game plan. Lesson number 18, teammates. Now you could of course build a game plan for solos, but duos is the main game mode. And so I took the time to make a full guide on how to find a better teammate inside Fortnite Academy. Because finding a good teammate is super important, as well as sticking with one teammate. Because together you'll build chemistry and together you will practice that game plan. If you keep finding a duo last minute before a tournament starts, it is probably not gonna go well. But I'm not going to repeat myself too much because I already made an entire video about this, and I will just leave a link to that in the description once again. As well as the follow-up video about how to play team modes. That is something I've become pretty good at in this past year, as you can see from my placements right now. I'll also leave a link to a follow-up video about how to play team modes. Lesson number 19. Preparing for a tournament. Now, I already talked about the improvement process and how to make progress in this game, but I wanted to talk more specifically about a mindset shift that needs to happen. Because when you see a tournament coming up, like the Unreal Cup, you might not know how to prepare for this tournament. You should start by finding a teammate, which we discussed in the previous lesson. Then you should start playing scrims and develop a game plan, which was the lesson before that. And then you need to fix your mistakes and weaknesses. This is a key part of Fortnite Competitive. Fixing your mistakes and weaknesses. A lot of the time, what separates a pro player from the average player is not some super secret strategy. It's just that average players keep making a bunch of mistakes. One small mistake, like messing up a rotate a little bit, that can cost you the entire game. Or maybe looking for a refresh on the wrong timing, or rotating on the wrong timing, or getting awareness checked in endgame. The real secret of pro players is that they don't die to any stupid crap like that. Or at least not as often as average players. Like if you sit through an entire tournament of a pro player, then in my eyes it looks pretty boring. A good example is that I recently watched Kurama, an EU player, win the solo cash cup on NA Central. And I thought once again there must be some crazy strat he's using to win these games. And sure, there might be some small things that he does like fishing shieldfish. That is not something every player does. But for the most part, it's just impressive to see how he does nothing crazy. He does nothing impressive. He just does simple rotates, simple fights, simple game plan. And that's why I rarely make videos about pro players. Because when I watch them, all I can think is, yup, that is exactly how you're supposed to play. But when I VOD review a beginner, they make a mistake every 10 seconds. So I always have something to say and give feedback on. Like if you could make 0 mistakes, then you would win all of your games. And that is ultimately the goal, isn't it? If you would win all of your games, then you would be crazy at Fortnite Competitive. And every game that you lose, it's because you made 1 or more mistakes. So when I think about preparing for a tournament, I think of playing scrims to see which mistakes I am making and trying to fix them as soon as possible. I remember when I wanted to qualify for Division 2 with my teammate Arku and something random. And for 2 weeks straight, maybe 3 or 4. All we did was playing scrim sessions and trying to fix our mistakes. Like one of my problems, for example, was that I sometimes got ahead on rotates, and so I would lose track of the IGL. And it's kind of funny, but I would actually make kind of a solo rotate, and all of a sudden I would be just fully split up from my trio. And that's actually really bad, because being split from your teammates is one of the mistakes that can get you killed in tournaments. And it's a possible reason why you would lose the tournament. And so this was really bad. But it's a good thing that we figured this out before the tournament. And so I had time to learn to pause. And so I had time to fix this. I had to learn to pause and always stay behind the IGL, which was something random. So I can always follow the IGL and avoid getting split. And because I fixed this mistake before the tournament, we got a really good result. One of our best results ever. If I made the same mistake in our final game and we died, then we probably would have gotten a much worse placement. I hope you understand this game is a lot more about what you're doing wrong than about what you're doing well. And by the way, this isn't just how you prepare for a tournament that happens 2 weeks from now, but it's exactly how you prepare for a tournament 1 year from now. Or 2 years from now. Every time that you play a scrim or even a tournament, you are preparing for that one game that qualifies you to grand finals. That's the mindset you need to have. Like every day, every single week, every single month, you are building better in-game habits and you fix your mistakes so that you eventually are capable of winning the hardest lobbies imaginable. But if you continue making the same beginner level mistakes, like not placing a cone in your box in endgame, then you won't even get a chance to play in those tournaments because you're not going to qualify. And if you do qualify for those tournaments, then you're going to get punished for them very quickly. And that's why it's so important for you to go in replays and figure out all of your mistakes and fix them one by one. Lesson number 20. VOD reviewing. But how do you figure out all of the mistakes you're making? Well, that's where VOD reviews come into play. As you might know, most of my videos I post on this YouTube channel are VOD reviews. That's where I go back in replays and I analyze people's games to figure out their mistakes and why they died. And this is super valuable information, not only to see your own mistakes, but also the mistakes of others. Because by learning all of the possible pitfalls and the reasons why you could die, you will automatically learn to avoid them. And that's what VOD reviewing is for. Without the stress of being in the middle of a tournament, you can just calmly analyze the situation and look at your games. And you will develop something called game sense. This is basically an intuition for what works and what doesn't work. If you see two possible rotates, rotate A and rotate B, and something tells you that option B is a lot better, then that is your game sense talking. You might not know exactly why, but it just feels like an intuition. And you develop this intuition by playing a lot or VOD reviewing a lot. One VOD review you watch on my channel today could help you in a tournament 1 year from now. Because you ever so slightly become smarter and more knowledgeable about how this game really works. VOD reviewing your own tournaments is the most important thing. That's where you'll learn the most. But sometimes you don't fully understand what you're doing wrong. And you can ask someone else with experience to do it for you, like me. And this was not supposed to be a self-advertisement, but it can definitely help to have someone else look at your gameplay, even if it's just your teammates. I did make a very good video about how to VOD review inside Fortnite Academy, in the OG grind course. And that pretty much talks about every single aspect of VOD reviewing, and how to VOD review in the most efficient way. I will once again leave a link to that below this video. Lesson number 21. Aim. By now you should have a pretty good understanding of how to develop your game sense. But that is not the only skill you will need to master. There are other skills that cannot be learned by VOD reviewing or by watching YouTube videos. And those are your fighting skills. Fighting skills are a very big part of this game. If someone W keys you and you don't know how to defend yourself, then you'll just die on the spot. If you can't fight, you can also not take height. You cannot get refreshes, and you can't win the final 1v1 or 2v2. There are a couple of components to your fighting skills that can be practiced on your own. And those are your mechanics, your aim, and your movement. These are fundamental skills to fighting that every player should master. And I want to start with your aim. Because in a way, it's the most important one. If you have better aim, you will hit more shots and harder shots, so you will win more fights. But aim is also important for your mechanics, so you don't miss any edits by looking at the wrong tiles. Now, if you are playing on controller, the best advice I have for you for your aim is to switch to keyboard and mouse. You rarely see any pro players that play on controller nowadays, because it is simply the inferior input. And I came from controller myself, but making that switch is one of the best decisions of my competitive career. If I never made that switch, I don't think I would have reached the top 1% or gotten any earnings. Like, it's still possible to be good on controller, I get it, but you are playing with a disadvantage. Keyboard and mouse is better, and if you make the switch today, I know you will thank me later. Why do you think controller players need aim assist? It's because aiming is so much harder than with a mouse. So if you're watching this, I'm assuming you're a keyboard and mouse player and you are playing on PC. If you're playing on console, it's the same story. PC is better than console. You will get more frames, you will hit more shots. And if you seriously want to be a pro, then getting a PC is one of the best investments you have to make. Now the next investment is in Kovaaks. You have to buy it. It is only 10 bucks, super cheap. And whenever I say this to people, they ask me, what about aim labs? Because they don't want to spend the 10 bucks. Those people will never make it as a pro. And not just because Kovaaks is so much better than aim labs. It's because of their mentality. Like, if you're not even willing to spend 10 bucks to get better at this game, then it's pretty much hopeless. Like, imagine spending 10,000 hours practicing this game. That is a much bigger investment. So in short, don't be an idiot, just buy Kovaaks. And then I highly suggest you use the Aimer 7 guide that I talked about earlier. I will leave a link to that in the description. My aim got so good because of it. People accused me of cheating. And I eventually got to the point where I could break some of the records of the sub aim beast, which is the highest level. But this is the only reason why I have over 1000 hours on Kovaaks and why my aim got so good. And depending on your talent, Kovaaks will help your aim faster or slower. But either way, it will help. If you come to me and say, oh, Kovaaks doesn't work for me, Kovaaks doesn't help, I'll slap you in the face, figuratively speaking. Just go do your aim training, you dumbass. One important thing for Fortnite is that you choose the click timing dominated routines. I practiced a lot of tracking as well, which is good for your mouse control, but I think flicks and your shotgun aim is the most important. So just go to that document and read it all the way through. And then start all the way at the start, so with the routines for the complete beginners. Don't skip the beginning levels, don't let your ego get in the way of your improvement. Like, I know it's gonna take a lot of time to get good aim, but if your goal is to go pro in this game, it is worth the investment. Because aiming is one of the most important fighting skills. And once again, it is also important that you do not take major breaks. If you play Kovaaks for 2 weeks and then you stop playing for 2 weeks, or 2 years like me, then your aim will become so much worse. And on top of that, you lost the habit. So you have to rebuild that habit of training your aim consistently. So this is another reason why you shouldn't quit, not even for a little bit. Just like Aimer7 said, it is about consecutive days, so how many days you do it in a row. I recommend playing Kovaaks for at least 30 minutes to really see an effect, before you hop online every single day. Like, it should become so part of your routine to just like hop on Kovaaks before you hop online. And also do not forget to do some stretches for your hands and wrists to avoid injuries. And then there is in-game aim training, which cannot be overlooked. There are aim duels and headshot only maps, or even aim training in Raiders Mechanics training map. All of these are great additions to your aim training routine. If I had to create a replicate of Peterbot, I would tell him to start with Kovaaks and then do in-game aim training. And honestly, I don't even know which one I would prefer between those maps. They're all great. The one I played the most myself is aim duels, and after that, probably the mechanics training map. I did not play a lot of headshot only maps, but I know a lot of pro players do. And so I think it is worth considering. Once again, it's not about choosing the most efficient form of practice. It doesn't really matter if you do aim duels or do the headshot only map, or if you practice in Kovaaks. The point is, if you do it consistently, then your aim gets better. And that's the trickiest thing. One small advantage though of aim duels is that you also practice your movement, because you're trying to dodge shots while hitting good shots at the same time. Whereas in Kovaaks you might not dodge many shots, and the same goes for the mechanics training map. In the headshot only map, of course, you're trying to dodge shots all of the time. So there are some small differences between these forms of aim training, but still the most important thing is that you are consistent. Now, next up are your mechanics. There are once again so many different ways of practicing your mechanics. If you listen to guys like Destiny Jesus, they'll have these crazy routines, like you have to do 5 minutes of piece control tunnels and then 3 minutes of edit timing practice and 3.5 minutes of phasing in boxes and 8 minutes and 20 seconds of free building. But I call bullshit on those routines. Like, that's not how you get better mechanics. Have you seen Destiny Jesus mechanics? He looks like a drone. I think most pros would agree that free building is the #1 thing for your mechanics. And then on top of that, you could practice some edit drills in a mechanics training map like Raiders. You are probably familiar with the V5 map. There's also one other map that is really good, and you might not know this one. It's basically Raiders V5 map, but it has some better edit drills. It just seems like it's more created for competitive players. I will put the code on screen right now, and you can also find it in the description of this video. But the point is, like, it doesn't really matter how you practice your mechanics, as long as you do it consistently, and for how long you do it. Pro players have been training their mechanics for years, and the same have I. And that's why we're so good at it. You don't have to be such a nerd about it, where you spend like 3 minutes on this, and 5 minutes on that, and 8 minutes on this. You don't have to overcomplicate it. That's like the skinny guy that never went to the gym in his life, and then he has like a whole workout routine planned for, like this is the most efficient form of exercise. But he should just stop thinking, just go to the gym and push some weights. It's not that deep. It is your consistency that matters most. So if you feel like your mechanics are really bad, the best thing for you to do is spend more time practicing them. Lesson number 23. Fighting. And now we finally arrived at the topic of fighting. This is where all of those skills come together and a bunch of new skills are introduced. There are so many different parts to fighting, and it will probably take me another 3 hours to go through everything, maybe even 10 hours. All of the principles and all of the theory, so I'm not gonna do that right now. And by the way, if you made it this far, then please let me know if you want me to make a full fighting guide just like this. But once again, it mainly has to do with how much you practice. When I first started playing Fortnite Competitive, fighting was the only thing I focused on. I thought the role of a fragger was to get kills, so I literally spent 90% of my time in creative or ranked, fighting 24/7. And I also played tokens or wagers at the time, which was also extremely good for my fighting skill. And that is actually the main point I wanted to make about your fighting. It is the difficulty of players that you're up against that will determine the quality of your practice. This is the single biggest factor behind your rate of improvement. If you play against your friends or your teammates, you'll improve, sure. But if you start playing tokens and you're going up against demons, creative warriors, or even pro players, then you are going to improve so much faster. And I don't even know why exactly. Maybe it's because they punish your mistakes, or maybe it's because you subconsciously learn how they play, or you learn how to play against them, which is also pretty important. You learn how to defend yourself against good players. I don't know what it is, but let's say you wanted to spend the next 6 months becoming the best fighter possible. Then I would tell you to first hop on Kovaaks, then aim duels and some mechanics training. This warm-up routine should no longer take you than 2 hours. And then for the rest of the time, just play against the best players you can find. If you can get into a friend group of players that are way better than you, then fantastic. If your teammates are better than you at fighting, fantastic. And otherwise you'll have to find new opponents in Discord servers. If you go into good Discord servers, you'll find better players as well. And that is fine too. And I know it's kind of annoying to lose, like you probably want to play against worse players because you win more against them. And you probably like winning a lot more than losing. But if you ever win against a player in creative, then you should probably immediately stop playing against them. You gotta find someone better. Trust me on this. And tokens are a very good way to find good players. There are a couple of small downsides to playing tokens though. Like if you lose, you also lose money. So it will cost you some money to improve. But once again, I think that's 1000% worth the investment. Like just put in 30 bucks into a site like Better Player Win, or you know, like maybe there are some other things. I think Revox stopped, but either way, if you don't want to make this investment, I once again think you're not that serious about going pro. It also forces you to become better, so you start winning tokens instead of losing them, because you don't want to keep losing your money. Another downside is that you will go up against players that will play a bit cringe. So they'll chop out your builds, they'll waste your mats, and they'll play in a way to win the token instead of trying to get better. And those are some small reasons why you wouldn't want to play tokens. But the upside of tokens is so big that those downsides don't matter at all. Like the benefit you get from tokens is that you'll play against players that are better than you and that are willing to put money on the line. Which is also a pretty good tell that they are serious about the game and that they're pretty good probably. And because there's money on the line, you will both try hard even more. So the quality of practice is better than you can find anywhere else. Like all of the best fighters in the world, they grinded a ton of tokens. More than you would believe. Like Clix is a good example. Like he's one of the best players in the world. And he's a token player. Shark, token player. Peterbot, token player. They all grinded a bunch of tokens. If there's one secret to your fighting skills, this is it. So if you're decent at fighting, but you're kind of confused on how to get to the next level, how to get to the pro level, then grind tokens. That's all you need to do. And that's all I have to say about practicing your fighting skills. Just grind a ton of tokens. Lesson number 24. The rule of limited exposure. Now I wanted to talk about a core principle of Fortnite Competitive. And this will help you win more fights and win more games. And it is called the rule of limited exposure. I actually came up with this myself and I never really shared it before. Until now. But the goal of Fortnite Competitive is of course to win. And in order to win, you need to keep your HP. Because if you lose your HP, then you die and you lose. So it all comes down to your HP. You use your mats in endgame to protect yourself. Because if you played like it's 0 builds and you don't build at all, then people will beam you and you will die because you're gonna lose your HP. That is the only reason why mats are important. Mats keep you alive because they shield you off from your opponents. And so you are less exposed. In an ideal situation, you could full tarp the whole endgame. Because then you'll never get hit, you're never exposed and you never lose your HP. But this is of course not realistic. Because you don't have an unlimited amount of mats. If you did, you would have a crazy advantage over all the other players. So your lack of mats is basically the reason why you lose games of Fortnite. You can only carry 500 wood, 500 brick and 500 metal, so 1500 mats in total. And if you're playing duos, it's of course double. Because you don't have unlimited amount of mats, You cannot full tarp the whole game. And so this forces you to be out in the open sometimes. Like you have to make rotates or you will die to storm. By now you should probably understand what deadside is, right? It is the part of zone where the least amount of players are. And the reason why you would want to go to deadside is because if you have to make a rotate, you will be exposed to the least amount of players, because there are less players nearby. And that is how you follow the rule of limited exposure. It's the same reason why you do safe peeks in fights, like the peanut butter peek or a window peek. You're trying to deal damage while exposing yourself as little as possible. That's why you're trying to do good peeks. Everything you do in this game can be brought down to how exposed you are. A good rotate is a rotate where the least amount of players will be able to shoot you. Let's say you make a wingsuit rotate, which is an item in this meta. You are fully exposing yourself to anyone that looks up in the sky. But if you catch a good timing, then a lot of other players will go at the same time. And then you minimize the risk of getting hit. And this is actually a very tactical choice. Because why would you want to make a wingsuit rotate? Because it's so much faster than going by foot. If you have to make a max distance rotate out in the open by foot, you will be exposed for a very long time. And once again, at every moment you could get hit. And if you lose your HP, eventually you slowly die until you actually die and then you lose the game. So once again, you're trying to limit your exposure. And sometimes this means you have to make a tactical choice. Like I'm gonna use the wingsuits now, even though I'll expose myself, I'll take that risk because I think the alternative is more risky and it will lead to more exposure. You're always trying to choose the path of least exposure. Like if you could full tarp every max distance zone, then of course using wingsuits would be a bad idea. But that's not the reality of the situation. You have to save your builds, so you can limit your exposure later on in the game. Because if at any point you run out of mats, then you are exposed to the maximum amount. Like everyone would be able to see you and shoot you and damage your HP. And so sometimes you have to look for a refresh. And this once again comes with risk. And you might get hit in the process of looking for a refresh. But sometimes this is worth it. Because if you get a refresh, you get more mats. And then you can tarp more, which means you are less exposed. So this small moment of exposure can lead to a longer period where you are less exposed. So I really wanted to teach you that this game is all about minimizing your exposure and knowing when to expose yourself, because it's the right play. Sure, sometimes you have to jump in someone's box to get a refresh and you'll be exposed, and sometimes you have to stay at congested side to get surge tags, or you have to make a rotate where you cheap tarp and you don't full tarp because you have to save your mats. You don't want to because you are exposed, but that is the risk-reward ratio that you have to get used to. Lesson number 25. Playing passive versus playing smart. The next point I wanted to make is about playing too passively. Like remember when I said that sometimes you have to force a refresh? Some players are really bad at this. They will just wait until they run out of mats and then they just die. Playing smart and playing passive are two very different things. Playing smart is making the right decisions to win the game. And this includes playing aggressive when you need to. So sometimes playing smart is doing the exact opposite of playing passive. It kind of ties into my earlier point of optimizing for short-term results instead of long-term improvement. Like you should always just aim to win the game, especially in scrims. Like if you're playing for a top 5 or a top 10, that is not how you become a pro. Sure, if you're in the last game of your tournament and all you need is a top 5 to qualify or something, then fine. You can play a bit more passively. I'm not saying you should intentionally get worse placements. But let's say you are playing the solo cash cup. The best way to win this solo cash cup is by dropping a high kill win in your first game. Because all of the pro players, they do that. They drop like a 20 bomb or even a 30 bomb or 40 bomb. And then they go on to place like top 100 on the leaderboards. But you don't really feel comfortable W keying and you're afraid to die. So going for endgame in your first game, that doesn't mean that you're playing smart. It means that you're playing scared. And even if you would die in that first game, you still have enough time to catch up. But more importantly, this is how you practice becoming good at the game. And if you don't get a good placement today, then that's fine. Like you were probably not gonna earn anyways, unless you're already a pro player. But if you were a pro player, then you would have the confidence to W key. But you are not a pro player, and so your main priority should be to improve at the game. Placing well comes second. It shouldn't be your priority, because it will lead to you playing scared. Instead of playing for height or getting a refresh that you need, you just sit there and do nothing. Like that's not how you improve at the game. That is how you lose. And this way you will not only miss out on the improvement, but it's probably not even gonna help you get a higher placement anyways. Because if you need to be aggressive at one point and confident, because sometimes you need to play aggressive and confident to win the game. And this actually leads me to my next point. Lesson 26. Confidence. Having too little confidence. Confidence plays a very big part in this game, and also in life. Confidence is just another word for trust. If you have confidence in your fighting skills, it means that you trust in your fighting skills. This is why I do not believe in fake confidence. Like, confidence needs to be earned. You have to deserve it. Players who are good at aiming, they will have confidence in their aim. So by aim training consistently and seeing your aim get better, you are slowly building up the confidence in your aim. The opposite of confidence is doubt. Doubt is when you question your ability. Like, you might have doubts about getting a good placement because, you don't really trust your ability to place well in tournaments. You might even have doubts about going pro at all. And once again, this makes perfect sense because you've never done it before. So how can you have any confidence? Like, if you never made any earnings, why would you ever trust yourself to achieve this goal? You have no evidence, no proof, no track record. And this makes it very hard to have faith. Sometimes in life, we need to take a leap of faith. Good things are not always easy or guaranteed. Sometimes you just need to go with your guts and hope it works out. For example, if you make a play for height, or if you jump in a kid's box to get a refresh. You don't know for sure that it will work out, but what is the alternative? I understand it might be scary to take that leap of faith. Like, it would be a lot easier if you had some sort of certainty. The certainty that you're gonna get that kill, or the certainty that you are going pro one day. That would make the play seem a lot less risky. By the way, the thing about risks is that there is no real risk if you are a professional, if you trust in your skills. One crazy habit of mine is that I climb in trees. And to some people this might seem risky. But I trust in my ability to climb these trees and not fall. And so I really think that risk is not really a thing. Like, something is only risky when you are just bad at it. Like, if you're trying to do a handstand and you think, oh, this might be risky, like I might fall. Then it's only because you are bad at it. Like, someone else, he might be very experienced with doing handstands, and for him it is a lot less risky. But the reality of the situation is that you're going to be grinding for years with absolutely no certainty. And I can't give you any certainty either. Like, once again, you could of course increase your chances of going pro. This guide you're watching right now is meant to do exactly that, help you go pro. But I cannot guarantee that this will pay off. So it is understandable if you have low confidence sometimes, and you have some doubts. Lesson number 27. Fear of failure. So let's talk about the fear of failure. Fear is nothing but the anticipation of pain. So when you're scared of something, it's because you expect future pain. And I've been through a lot of pain in my life, so I know what I'm talking about. I've been through physical pain, emotional pain, psychological pain, you name it. But the funny thing about pain is that pain only makes you stronger. I really think that strength is only another word for pain resistance. Like, if you've been through pain, then you will be more resistant to pain, and that is basically strength. And it's also why muscles grow bigger when you put them through pain. And the same goes for your mind. Like, it will become stronger. And so your suffering is never for nothing. When you expect future pain, the best thing you can do is embrace it. Embrace future pain and fear will disappear. If you can embrace a scenario where you might fail to go pro, then you will be a lot better off. This might not work out, but that is not the end of the world. It doesn't mean you'll die. Like, sure, it will hurt, it will suck, it will be painful. But you'll bounce back, stronger than ever before. If you are overly worried about failing to go pro, then that's exactly what will happen. If you're overly worried about losing a tournament, then that is what will happen. If you're overly worried about losing a game or a scrim, then that is what will happen. Because if you worry too much, all of a sudden you're distracted. You're no longer focusing on trying to win the game. You're no longer focusing on, like, I need to win, I need to succeed. You are going into survival mode. All of a sudden, you're so scared to die, you're so scared to fail, that you don't take that refresh opportunity, or you don't play for height. Even though playing for height was gonna get you the win. So if you're so afraid of losing, then why would you not play for height? It's because you don't have any confidence if you're full of doubt. A part of you believes you're going to fail, and that's why it's causing you these doubts, and that's why it's causing you to do the things that will lead to failure. This is a bigger deal than you think, because you are operating from a scarcity mindset. Pro players are almost never scared to lose tournaments, partially because they have earned confidence, so they trust in their abilities. But it's actually more than that. Like, I remember when I called over Halo when he qualified Grand Finals. I sat with him in call to congratulate him, and I was so surprised by what he said. He said that he didn't care about placing last, as long as they are not seen as a team that will change their drop spot. And of course, he still cared about Grands. But he didn't seem afraid to lose. Like, you'll almost never see a pro player be afraid to lose a solo cash cup. But I was definitely afraid. I felt like everything was on the line, like it was a test of my skills, and if I didn't prove myself today in this tournament, then it might mean that I'm not at the pro level yet, and it's gonna take so much more time to grind. Like, the point I'm trying to make is that you cannot be too afraid to lose, because losing doesn't kill you. It will only make you stronger. Or it can be a learning opportunity, because if you lose a tournament, you just go into VOD reviews and you learn from your mistakes. So there's no real reason to worry. Even if you don't have confidence or certainty, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. Sometimes we just have to take that leap of faith and hope for the best. And whatever happens, happens. You can't do more than that. And if you want to have more confidence in a specific skill like W keying, then that's exactly what you need to do. If you don't feel confident to play for a height, then you should play for height. Not just in scrims, but in actual tournaments. Because you are not trying to get better at scrims. The end goal is to be better at tournaments. So practice W keying in tournaments. Take height in tournaments. That is how you build real confidence. Lesson number 28. Overconfidence. You could also be overconfident, and in a weird way, I was definitely overconfident at times. Some moments I was full of doubt, not knowing whether I'd make it as a pro. And other moments there was no doubt in my mind that I would be a pro one day, because I was making so much progress. I think it is a fine line to walk. Like, sometimes you don't want to be filled with doubt, because the lack of confidence will hold you back. But if you have the mindset of, no matter what I do, I'll make it one day, then it might actually prevent you from trying your absolute best. If you're overconfident, you might make a bad play, like jumping in someone's box when you shouldn't do it. If you are overconfident, you might not train your aim. Why? Because it doesn't matter, you have plenty of time to go pro, you'll train your aim tomorrow. You have overconfidence in your ability to make it as a pro one day. And so you don't take the game as seriously right now, because you'll think, you know, I'll start logging in next week or next year or next month, it doesn't matter when. But you're not doing it right now because you're delaying the hard work. You're saying like, I'll make it pro anyways. It's kind of delusional, right? Like, if you're in your teenage years right now, you're living with your parents, then you might not consider the future too much. But the moment you turn 18, or when you finish high school, there will be a moment like, I kinda gotta make some income. I gotta make some money. And if Fortnite Competitive at that moment doesn't make you any earnings, then, you know, like, you might have thoughts like, I can't be 25 years old living in my parents' basement, just playing video games 24/7. I hope you get what I mean. Overconfident players, they might actually be a bit delusional sometimes. If you're not seeing any results, then sometimes it's good to think like, am I doing the right things to go pro? Or am I doing the wrong things? Like, do I need to change something? An overconfident person, he will push those thoughts away. And it very much ties into having an ego. If you have a big ego and you think you're the best player in the game, then you might be less open to feedback. Like, if someone criticizes you and says like, yeah, you might have done this wrong, it feels like a personal attack. And so you don't use their feedback and try to learn from it. And instead you just criticize them back. You might say like, yeah, it wasn't my fault, it was your fault. Like, you put me in that situation. And you're gonna make excuses. Whatever you do, you are not a humble learner with an improvement mindset. Every time you die, it is your teammate's fault. Or maybe the other players in your lobby. Like, sometimes people will actually say things like, why are you guys not rotating? We have to make a rotate. And so someone might actually blame the other players in the lobby for their death. Like, if you die, it's because other people are not smart enough to make this rotate right now. Like, why are they shooting you instead of rotating? And you somehow feel like that was unfair or stupid by them. Or let's say you're trying to reboot in Storm and someone W keys you. You could say like, why are you griefing both of our games? Like, now we're both dead, you're gonna die to Storm. while the other team is still alive and will probably make it out of Storm pretty easily. Like, what you should have done in that situation is blame yourself. Like, why are you rebooting in Storm in the first place? Like, you made some mistakes. But some players, they will not see those mistakes because they're too busy protecting their ego. So overconfidence and having a big ego can make you blind. Blind to the truth. You don't want to admit that it's your fault and that you are messing up sometimes. And sure, in the middle of a tournament, it might be fine to blame some other things like luck. Like, oh, zone pulled far, we couldn't do anything about it. But in reality, you should go in VOD reviews and figure out how to win in any situation. Like, when you go back in VOD reviews, that's the moment to be honest with yourself. Like, that's the only way you can really see your weaknesses and fix them. Like, if you are delusional enough to go in replays and still blame other things out of your control, then, you know, like, I don't know what to do for you. People with a crazy big ego might not even go in replays because it will be too painful to see all of their mistakes. And for this reason, they're just not gonna VOD review at all. Yeah, so as I said, overconfidence can also be the reason why you make mistakes. Like being too overconfident in your fighting skills and W-keying too much. Or you can take a 50-50 that was simply stupid, but you took it because you were like, yeah, nah, I'm gonna win this one. I have the best aim in the game. Like that kind of stuff. That is overconfidence getting you killed. And I've died to that a lot of times. The moral of the story is to never let your ego get in the way of your improvement. Now, if I had to choose between overconfidence or having too little confidence, it would always be overconfidence. I think it's much better to have too much confidence than too little confidence. Because if you make confident plays, because if you have too much confidence, it will still limit you in some ways. You might make some mistakes that you wouldn't. Because sure, overconfidence is not the greatest thing and you should probably not be overconfident, but it is much worse to have too little confidence and then just play scared or passive. You don't want that. Ideally, you can just be grounded in reality. Like me, I have 300 earnings in this game, which means I'm not the worst player, I'm also not the best player. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm a top 1% player, that's also factual. So I don't have to have overconfidence, but I have just enough confidence to make these videos for you guys and help you improve. Peterbot has overconfidence, but he earned it. As you guys know, sometimes he's very arrogant, but I would say that his confidence and his competence, so his skill level, are actually in balance. And that's the situation you want to be in. Lesson number 29. Decision speed. Now, one topic that is related to your confidence is your decision-making speed. In Fortnite Competitive, we have to make a bunch of decisions, especially in endgames. A team pre-edits on you, what do? Like, you have to be fast, otherwise you'll just die. But the thing is, if you make a wrong decision, then you're also gonna die. So you need to make good decisions and you need to make them fast. And it should be your goal to strive for this. And confidence plays a very big part in this. But you need to have the confidence to make those decisions. Fortnite is not like chess, where you have like 5 minutes to think about one move. Because if you see a rotate that looks good, but you don't really feel confident and you wait another minute, then the situation might have changed. And then what could have been a good rotate is now a super scuffed rotate. So you have to be fast and learn to trust your gut. And this is especially important for the IGL in team modes, because he makes all of the decisions. And so if he thinks a play is good to make, he should just do it, without hesitation. And then the fragger or the support player, he should instantly be on board. Like if you keep doubting your IGL and question whether he makes the right calls, then he's gonna have way less confidence to call those shots, because you do not trust him. And so he might have less trust in himself. And then he'll start to be slower with his decisions. And then the decisions are obviously gonna be worse, because the situation is gonna change. A lot of your intuition comes from playing this game a lot. And everything I've said so far doesn't only apply to endgames or rotates. It also applies to fighting. When you play 1v1s, you're making hundreds of small decisions every minute. Every little button you press is intentional. And you don't always need to think about it, like your exact positioning on the right hand peak or your crosshair placement. But that's just because you practiced it so much, and now it becomes automatic. Eventually, the same thing will happen in your tournament games. You don't really need to think about every small decision. You just do it because it feels right. And if you have a lot of game sense, then oftentimes that decision is probably right. And sure, you cannot be 100% accurate all of the time. Like, you will still make mistakes. But that's just part of the game. And if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world, you know? Try to have confidence and make a confident play. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Then go and replays and figure out what you can learn from it. If I had to choose between decision speed and decision quality, because in my personal experience, being slow gets you killed. And if you make a play confidently and fast, and it doesn't work out, you can still learn from it and then you will improve anyways. But if you want to make a decision and you wait too long, then you might not know if the decision was right because so much time has elapsed and now the situation has changed. And so it wasn't the decision that was wrong, it's only because you were too slow at executing it. Now we are approaching the end of this guide, but there are still a couple of important lessons left. Like lesson number 30, focusing on your strengths or your weaknesses. This is a pretty important lesson because it's a lot more enjoyable to do the things that we are good at. So let's say you have a talent for fighting. Then you probably think it is a lot of fun to sit in creative all day and just grind fighting. A lot more fun than playing scrims. Scrims might seem boring to you. And because you're fighting so much, you'll become even better at fighting. And then you love it even more because you're good at it. And this is what I call the mastery spiral. Every top athlete has a passion for the game they play. It doesn't matter if it's Michael Jordan or Messi or Ronaldo, one of those players, it doesn't matter. They enjoy playing the game, so they get better at it, and because they're so good at it, they'll enjoy it even more. And then this spiral almost turns into an addiction, and not really in a bad way, in my opinion. I think it's a pretty good addiction. It's kind of like being a workaholic. Like some people are addicted to working hard. And you might think like, oh, this is so bad, like addicted to working hard, like you're never stopping, you're never resting. But to me, this kind of sounds like a positive thing. Like maybe that's just me, maybe I'm wrong and I'm giving you the worst advice. Like, okay, sure, I'm not gonna tell you guys to become a workaholic. Don't be addicted to working. I'm just saying that this addiction is a lot better than taking drugs, for example. But back to the point, it is very normal to enjoy the things that you are good at. For example, I was always pretty good at sports. And that's why I enjoyed it. I was also very good at maths at school, so I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed math. Other people, they might hate math, but they are probably pretty bad at it as well. So if you were good at math, would you maybe enjoy it? And if you enjoyed it, would you not do it more? And if you do it more, then you would be better at it. And that's the spiral I'm talking about. Now, why is this so important?
Wow.
Because this might mean that you are not practicing the things that you are bad at. When I came back to the game this past year, I was super bad at fighting, because I hadn't played in the last 2 years. But because I have spent the last few years coaching, my game sense was super high. And so I enjoyed playing scrims a lot more, and I barely played any fighting practice. Until I realized this, and I was like, oh shit, I am bad at fighting, and that's why I'm not fighting, because every time I fight, I lose. If I play against good players, I lose. And I don't like losing, I don't like the thing I'm bad at. So I'll just do the thing I'm good at, I'll just play another scrim. But I had to consciously decide to focus on my weakness. You always gotta keep this in mind when practicing. Like the thing you practice most is probably the thing you are already best at. And that might not be the thing you should be practicing. Maybe your situation is opposite to mine. Like you are very good at fighting, but your game sense is lacking. So then maybe you should spend more time playing scrims. Even though this is more uncomfortable. You are more comfortable, of course, with just grinding tokens or something. But if you're uncomfortable playing scrims, then it simply means you are on the right track. Like that is exactly the thing you should be doing. And I'm not saying to stop doing the things you love and the things you're good at. Because if you love grinding tokens or 4v4s, then keep doing that 100%. Like that's only gonna lead to you grinding even more. But I think it's super common, for example, for players to be bad at fighting in-game. And then instead of playing ranked or scrims, the W key, or playing tournaments, W keying in tournaments, they don't do that, they'll just continue playing in creative. And sure, in creative they're demons, of course, they're creative warriors. And they'll enjoy doing that. But they're not gonna sit in ranked, because they keep dying in ranked. They'll just go back to their comfort zone, which is creative. The point is to expand your comfort zone, because outside of your comfort zone lie skills that you are currently lacking. If you are the best fighter in creative, but you're dying in ranked, it means that there are skills in ranked that you are lacking. Maybe in ranked you run out of mats a lot, and you need to learn how to fight with less mats, or you need to learn how to conserve your mats while fighting. Because in creative, you start with cap mats every fight, and you can use all of them. But in a real game, you don't want to spend all of your mats because you're gonna run out and you're gonna die. And so those types of skills are exactly the ones you should be practicing. Lesson number 31, and this is a quick one. Equipment. I wanted to do a very short lesson about equipment. If you already have the best equipment, then maybe you can skip this section. But no matter how well you practice, it doesn't matter if you're playing on a bad setup, like playing on console. You'll never be able to go pro. If you want to become one of the best, then you need the best equipment. This means a good keyboard, like the Apex Pro, a good mouse, like the G Pro Superlight, a good PC that holds solid frames in endgames, a good headset, a good mousepad, a good monitor, a good coach. These are all of the investments you need to make. But if you do not sacrifice for your goal, then your goal becomes the sacrifice. Let me say that one more time. If you don't sacrifice for your goal becomes the sacrifice. If you want to go pro, it will cost a lot of time. It will cost a lot of energy and it will cost you some money. It's not even a lot of money, you know, like, okay, to some people it is. I get that not everyone has the same finances. Like, you can't just buy a 2000 euro PC and think it's nothing. Like, it's a pretty big investment. But it's an investment that you'll have to make. Like, it will give you more of an advantage, and you need as many advantages as possible. Because this game is very hard, especially at the top levels. If you are playing on console right now and your parents don't want to buy you a PC, or they can't buy you a PC, then I would tell you to get a part-time job and make that money yourself. Like, I've given this advice to plenty of players, and I've done it myself, you know, earning my own PC. Because sometimes your parents can't just afford to lose thousands of dollars. Like, I get it, it makes sense. And sometimes they are not even on board with you playing video games 24/7 in the first place. So they're definitely not gonna help you grind even more. But either way, you have to get your hands on good equipment. It is part of the sacrifice. Lesson number 32. Dealing with parents. Now, in this lesson, I want to help you deal with parents that do not support your goal of going pro. Because generally, parents do not like that you play video games. They see it as a waste of time and a waste of your potential. And honestly, it might be. Like, your talent might not be to play this game. Like, maybe you have a talent for maths and you were meant to be a great mathematician. And so right now, you're kind of wasting time playing video games. Like, that is the perspective of your parents. You should be pretty grateful that your parents care enough about you to not want you to waste your time. Like, they probably want the best for you. And you should also want the best for yourself. And you think this might work out for you. And I might agree. Because if you have the dedication to spend like hours watching a guide on how to do something, then you have like a lot of dedication. Like, that is not normal. But I already told you, like, you need to be certain about going pro. Because it is not a small decision. Why would your parents support you if you're not even sure yourself if this is what you want to do? Because imagine they help you buy a brand new PC and then after a few months you just quit. Then they'll see it as a waste of money, of course. And if you are 100% certain that you want to be a pro, then this needs to be reflected in your actions. You gotta start behaving like a serious competitor. And not just a little kid playing video games. If your parents see you wake up on time, take care of your other responsibilities outside the game, so at school and around the house, and you make other good choices, like going to the gym, or maybe you do some extra chores, whatever, you seem like the perfect child that makes good and responsible choices, then they'll trust you more. They'll have more confidence in the fact that you can make your own decisions, and that you actually think about your actions. But if you are super chaotic and childish, if you keep arguing over bullshit, if you are crying all of the time, if you get late for school, if you don't want to take out the trash, if you don't want to do all of those things, if you act like an immature child, then they're not going to give you any freedom. Of course, they're not going to give you any freedom. Like, why would they allow you to make your own decisions? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I don't think parents give their children freedom when they become older. They give them freedom when their kids are more mature. I became very mature at a very early age. And so my parents, they learned that I could be trusted. I was responsible, and so they gave me a lot more freedom. And you might think to yourself, no, my parents are not like that. They are just super strict, and you are just lucky to have such chill parents. But to that I would say, I also have a sister. And she acts pretty immature for her age. And now for the first time, I see how strict my parents can be. Like, sure, your parents might be more strict than mine. But I think a lot of that is your fault. It's because you don't show that you can be trusted with your freedom. And so they're not giving you any freedom and you experience this as strictness. Now the last thing I wanted to talk about is negotiation. Because sometimes you'll need to have a difficult conversation with your parents. If your parents put screen time on you playing video games. Like some parents, they'll put screen time on you playing video games. And then you simply don't have a chance to go pro. So one thing about negotiation is knowing who holds all the power. Your parents have all of the authority. They can say no. They can tell you what to do. And you can't do anything about it. So you have to know your position. Like, you're not coming from a place of authority. You're not going to tell your parents, nah, remove my screen time. No, you have to negotiate and argue for yourself in a way where they want to allow you to do this. You basically have to convince them. At one point, I had a deal with my parents that as long as I did well in school, I was allowed to grind Fortnite as much as I wanted. And you might be able to arrange a similar thing. Especially if you're more mature and older. But if you're like 13, 14, 15, like, you gotta understand that your parents are trying to protect you and your future. They might see video games as a waste of time. So you need to make it clear to them that you understand their concerns. Like, you understand the risk that you are taking. But you are your own person. And you are the one that has to bear the consequences of your actions. Like, if this doesn't work out, then it's your fault. You're the only one that has to deal with that. And if it does work out, then great. It is, after all, your life, and you should be able to decide what you're gonna do with it. I've had these exact conversations with my parents, particularly my mother. My dad was actually the one who introduced me to Fortnite. But I wanted to give you this advice because I know how difficult it can be when your parents don't believe in you, when they don't support your goal, they see video games as a waste of time, they might actually prevent you from playing. But I think the key takeaway is to grow up as fast as possible, to behave more mature, so to act more mature, so that they'll kind of treat you more of an equal rather than just a little kid. Then it will also be a lot easier to ask them to invest in you and your dream of going pro. For example, by buying you better equipment. Lesson number 33. Problem solving. Now this is the most important lesson in this guide, by far. I wanted to talk about your problem solving skills. This is actually one of the most important skills in life. And it will not only help you go pro, it will also help you become more successful in anything you do. So in the previous lesson, I talked about how to deal with difficult parents. Because if they limit your playtime and say like you can only play for like 3 hours a day, then this becomes a problem. A problem that will hold you back from practicing, which is important for your improvement. And if your goal is to go pro, then you need to solve this problem. So in this guide, I've made you aware of a bunch of different problems, and I gave you my best advice to solve them. But I'm sure that you're gonna run into more problems, more specific problems. Like in-game problems, like dying to surge. Or maybe it's problems in your personal life, like having basketball practice exactly at the moment of a tournament. Either way, you're gonna run into problems. And it is your job to find the solution. And trust me when I say that there's always a solution. I have never in my life had a problem that I couldn't fix. And that's because everything just makes sense. Like, there's always cause and effect. If you train your aim gets better. If you sleep too little, you get tired. So let's say you feel tired and you want to solve this, because if you're tired, you're not going to grind as much. Then you need to figure out the reason why you're tired. And then you think, okay, shit, I haven't been sleeping as well lately. And that is how you solve a problem. If your aim is bad and you keep losing your fights because you just miss all of your shots, then you need to figure out why your aim is bad. You're like, why is my aim bad? Well, I haven't touched Kovaaks ever. So maybe I should download Kovaaks, and that is the solution. The funny thing about solutions is that your solution actually becomes a new goal. So let's say you want to fix your sleeping schedule because you were trying to solve the problem of being tired. Your goal is to have a perfect sleep schedule. Then there are gonna be other problems, like maybe you spend too much time, on your PC grinding, and then you just don't get tired because you have blue light in your eyes all of the time. That is one problem you might need to fix. Maybe you need to install like a blue light filter. So you have to keep problem solving. The same goes for if you put your goal as, like I want to improve my aim. Then you're gonna have different problems, like if you buy Kovaaks for the first time, like what do you do? Which scenarios do you practice? Like you don't know anything. So how do you solve that? By, going to Aimer7's guide. And then your settings and Kovaaks are also going to be messed up. And you're going to have to find a YouTube video and fix your settings. That's another problem you might need to solve. So throughout your life, you're going to run into a bunch of different problems and you need to find a solution. And of course, you can ask for help. You can watch videos just like this. And the big Fragger Mike, he will help you. But I cannot solve every single problem. So if you do have a specific problem that I didn't mention in this video, then don't just be frustrated and give up. Like, go find the solution and fix the problem. Like, this is such simple advice, but most people don't do it. They will complain about the problem for months or years and then don't do anything about it. Like the problems that you don't try to fix, you are choosing to have. You were not born as a monkey or a fish or a zebra. You are a human being, which means you have a brain. So use it. If you made it all the way to the end of this guide, it means you're absolutely crazy.